want to start with the Bills offense against the Ravens defense. The Bills offense coming off of that Broncos game where you get to see some of the things that they've done very well throughout the season. You get the 6 offensive lineman package where they're able to run over you. They're able to force you into heavier boxes. They're able to force you pull a safety down. And then, I mean, you got a single high safety against Josh Allen. He'll throw the ball over you, around you, and everywhere you can think of. And then they also have that nice little 4x1 formation where I like that it was a bunch set, but then also the running backs kind of bumped over there. So you kind of have to treat it as a 4x1. They use kind of a unique motion, going back and forth. And then the defense has a real tough choice. Am I playing zone where when you have 4 receivers or 4 eligible receivers, at least to the side of a field, you can just really overload the zones where a lot of zones, if you think about them having 2 layers or 3 layers, they're not going to be able to have 4 layers. Obviously, that can mess up the spacing in terms of passing because defense, you can maybe play 2 receivers at one time, but the defense, you choose to play man coverage on that play. Bills are able to generate an explosive. I was really excited about their interior offensive line in that game against the Broncos. I've talked about this a bunch this year where the tackle play has really, really elevated this year. It's been a lot of fun to watch week after week. I thought really locked down against Denver as well. So I think the offense in a good spot, even though we talked about it, at the start of the Broncos game, you start a little bit, I'm not antsy, but that's what it looked like, but I'm sure that they were feeling fine. Started off a little slow, got things straightened out. What do you have as some stats here for the Bills offense?
Yeah, I mean, this Bills offense is playing at such a high level right now. What I really liked from that Broncos game in particular was you have Joe Brady, who took over as offensive coordinator midway through last season. And so he was probably a little bit less prepared going into the playoffs than he was this season, where he had a full offseason to think about his plan for the playoffs. And what I really liked from that game was what you mentioned, like a lot of 6 offensive linemen, 4x1, which they hadn't done much of this year that you mentioned in your article, and they broke out a lot of it in that particular game against the Broncos. And so I do still think that he probably has stuff up his sleeve that he hasn't really shown a lot of on film that can be tendency breakers in this game, and that should continue to propel the Bills offense. And when you look at the Bills offense this year, they've really specialized in generating explosive plays. Weeks 1 through 17, they ranked first in EPA per play, but 4th in success rate. So they were a little bit better at just getting those 15 plus yard gains. And they have been really good in the pass and run game, which has allowed them to do so. Shakir is their best offensive weapon, in my opinion. We mention him all the time on here. I actually do think James Cook is their second best offensive weapon because of how well he kind of fits in with how their offensive line is playing, and then what he can also do in the pass game on top of that, and just really helping out in the red zone. And then you have Josh Allen, obviously, who is just really leading this offense right now. And it's just crazy to think about to me that you have Josh Allen, who he's 6'5", 237 pounds, crazy good arm, can truck anyone on the field at any time, but he also has the lowest sack rate in the league. Like Robert Mays pointed out on Twitter that he has the same sack rate as like prime Peyton Manning right now. So he's just understanding the game both on a physical and mental level, which is so cool to watch. And he's really decreased his average depth of target this season from what it was before. He used to rank very high in terms of how often he was pushing the ball down the field. And this year he has decreased the amount of intermediate throws, the 5 to 15 air yard throws that he's taking. It's a lot of under 5 air yard throws, and then he'll throw enough deep balls to generate those explosives. And so that's also been really fun to watch, and seeing how they generate yards after catch when he does throw under 5 air yards.
Can you believe we were bamboozled into thinking the Bills shouldn't be the favorite to win the AFC East? I mean, we're both on the record as saying, like, yeah, obviously they should be the favorite. Now, they weren't the favorite, or they really maybe tied based on betting odds. It's been so fun to watch them this year. Like we talked so much about the 6 offensive line thing, and I mean, you were the one who pulled the numbers on this stuff for my article there, where 6 offensive linemen at a 15% rate compared to a league-wide rate of 3.5%. Like that is it's a staple part of their offense. It is a package that they're going to consistently. And when I asked you also to pull that 4x1 number, I think the Bills were like under 1%. The league wide average is around 1% as well. And like when you look at a defensive install, you'll see kind of the coverage based on 2x1, 2x2, 3x1. Some older ones will have obviously under center, I form stuff. You very rarely see your check or your coverage to 4x1. Some will have like a whole separate thing for it because it's so rare. If it's a 1% usage, like I think it was 0.8%, right, for the Bills. Now, I will say, I think that maybe that number goes just a little bit different just because, like, when the running back is out wide, I wonder how that specific gets charted because I do think you have to treat that as a 4x1 set, even though, like, I don't know, you could reasonably say, oh, well, no, it's not because the running back is kind of off in that way. So a little bit of uniqueness, Josh Allen playing at such a high level. And I'm glad you mentioned, Joe Brady getting just more comfortable. I think that he is in a really good spot there. We talked about it a little bit towards that back half of last year, just having them just settle in. I also really like actually that you mentioned James Cook there because I think he has had a very, very good year. I remember, I think it was we are doing like the Sumer Pro Bowl voting or something like that. And I was like, oh, well, like this, James Cook has been playing really, really well. And I think I love watching an offensive line continue to improve, a running back continue to improve. And so coming into the season, when we look at it and say, oh man, who are Josh Allen's weapons? I mean, if you listen to That's the Scheme, you would know it's Khalil Shakir. And we're happy to have that. But to see Cook continue to grow in that has been a positive sign. Another thing, grow in the Ravens defense, where they've been the best defense in the league by EPA per play since week 11. It feels like they're streamlining things for Hamilton, for Darius Washington, for Roquan Smith. I really enjoyed all the cover two variations that they were playing against the Steelers. I think back to that first game, I think it was week 4, right, against the Bills, and they were able to generate a ton of pressure up front. I thought that was something that caused the Bills some problems. The Bills were 3 of 13 on third down. Allen running around a bunch. Feels like the Bills tackles have really settled in since that point. So I think that maybe Buffalo is going to be able to prevent some of that pressure. I'm interested to see what Baltimore does with Kyle Hamilton specifically, because when Buffalo brings out that sixth offensive lineman, you have a choice. Are you going to play nickel? But your nickel is a little bit different when Kyle Hamilton is in that spot. But now with him playing so much safety and really being a positive force for the defense in that way, I think that's a little bit of one to monitor. What do you have here for the Ravens defense?
Yeah, I definitely agree that the Ravens defense has gotten better in the back half of this year. I do want to just caution a little bit their actual production numbers in terms of EPA per play, because since week 11 they've gotten to play Pittsburgh twice. They played the Drew Lock led Giants. They played the Bailey Zappi led Browns, and also the Texans offense on Christmas that was looking pretty lifeless. So I definitely think that they've improved in terms of just the back end of the defense and not allowing explosive plays like they were at the beginning of the season. But definitely think that their numbers are also inflated a little bit because of the strength of competition. What they've been really good at relative to the league is defending passes under 15 air yards. Like they because of the way that they can play downhill and really just wrap up and tackle on those plays, they've shown that they're pretty good at locking those down. They are still very susceptible to passes over 15 air yards. So that's definitely going to be a big test for them in this matchup, is how well a player like Brandon Stevens, for example, can hold up in coverage if Josh Allen is targeting them deep. And we should see a lot of passes from the Bills in this game, because the Ravens defense is a huge pass funnel where they are really, really good against the run and they're not that good against the pass. And so teams have really increased their pass rate over what they usually do against the Ravens because of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a positive matchup here for the Bills offense. I mean, Josh Allen versus anyone, right? It might have to be Josh Allen versus everybody in this game. I'm always excited when Josh Allen is able to run a little bit more when he is in the designed run game. It's such a force, obviously, in the red zone, but I think you can use him throughout the whole entire field. It's really like, hey, not any time to hold anything back anymore. So I'm interested to see how many design runs Allen's going to have overall. I think you pulled the number. The Ravens have seen 4 or 8 plays of 4x1 formations this season, according to the charting. I'd be interested to see what the Ravens have in store for that. I think you can find ways to maybe beat them a little bit in man coverage. You mentioned Brandon Stevens. I think that's a spot that you have to be able to target.
Yeah, that's exactly where I would go for the best matchup for the Bills offense, is targeting Brandon Stevens in this game where, like I mentioned earlier, like the Bills throw the lowest amount of intermediate passes in the league. So they're either throwing short or throwing deep, and they're probably going to throw deep a lot in this game because they're really good at it. The Ravens aren't really good at it. And so when you pick the corner in particular to target, I do think it's going to end up being Brandon Stevens, just because of where the Ravens' strengths are with their other defensive backs, and him being the weak link and someone who was definitely targeted deep a lot against in their game last week against Pittsburgh.
I do want to see if the Ravens are going to bring out more base personnel to deal with the Bills' six offensive linemen, and the Bills kind of manufacture a type of one-on-one over Stevens' side. It'll be interesting to see if the Ravens are saying, no, we're just going to put safety over the top. We're going to play cover two to that side every time. We're not going to let you beat us in that way. At the same time, we love Khalil Shakir, maybe more than anything in this world, but the Bills, obviously, their pass catching room. I'd love to see a really strong Amari Cooper game. Like that would be nice to have him winning routes on the outside versus Stevens. Obviously, Shakir is going to be working over the middle. And I mean, the six offensive linemen, we've talked about that a bunch today, a bunch before. And I think you have it as actually a positive or a potentially positive matchup for the Ravens.
Yeah, so it's a little tough to figure this one out because the Ravens have only seen 49 plays against six offensive linemen this year, as charted by FTN data. And the Bills will obviously use six offensive linemen at the highest rate in the league. So we don't have a huge sample of how good the Ravens are at defending it. But based on just the plays that we know, which is the 49 plays, the Ravens have been really, really good against six offensive linemen sets. They've only allowed a 25% success rate and a negative 0.55 EPA per play allowed, which are both the best marks in the league. So I'm very curious to see which kind of side that plays out in this game. Granted, like you mentioned, it's only 15% of plays. So even if that doesn't work out for the Bills, they still should have other options of formations and personnels they can get into. But when in particular they do go into the six offensive lineman look, they should definitely proceed with caution because the Ravens defense has been so good at defending it this year.
At 15% of plays, of course, it's a piece of the pie. It's not the whole entire pie. It's still, I think, significant where if the Ravens are having a lot of struggles against it, then the Bills can push a few more buttons from that formation. Like I always mention that Jaguars game because it was a great example of the team's going to keep on playing single high against you. You're going to get those crossers against that single high safety. You're just not going to be able to defend it. Also, if you're uncomfortable dealing with the run against six offensive linemen, where I mean Alec Anderson is mowing down people as well. I think maybe it's a little more interesting schematically than how it'll be in terms of results. I think that will be a fun one to look at. I'm interested to see what the Ravens are doing in terms of are you able to generate pressure with Ford the way that those tackles are playing, the way that they're coming off of that game against the Broncos? Because that I think is part of the path. It was part of the path to winning against the Bills that first time. Like you think of Allen having to kind of bump out to the outside defensive end, being prepared and really being able to kind of attack that spot. What about moving away from like good, bad? What about just something fun you're looking forward to in this one?
Yeah, something fun in this game will be when Josh Allen scrambles. We know he's an elite scrambler. I have him rated as the second best scrambler in terms of success rate in the league right now, and
Are you
he
man? You gonna spoil who your number one is, or are you saving that
So
for
I
Oscar
think I mentioned
nomination
this
morning?
last week or 2 weeks ago, but it's actually Mahomes because I do like
Uh-huh.
a Bayesian weighting where you're weighted against league average until you have enough scrambles and you sort of move off of it. And so yeah, I have Mahomes one, Allen two, and then Lamar three. So we're gonna be
Where's Jane
talking about
Nails
all of
at
them
on that?
today, which is I think he's still like fourth or fifth because he still hasn't moved away from
Okay,
league
okay.
average enough
Yeah, these
yet, but
thresholds
he'll be up
thresholds.
there. He'll be up there very soon. Yeah.
So you're talking about Allen scrambling. What about the Ravens dealing with scrambles?
Yeah, Ravens defense has been good against scrambles this year. They've only given up 10.6 scramble yards per game, which is sixth best in the league. So that'll be a fun matchup to watch. I think the Ravens are a pretty good tackling team, especially up front. And then obviously Allen is a great scrambler. So it'll be a very fun matchup to watch.
Scrambling, it's fun to watch against zone coverage, particularly obviously against man coverage. You usually have maybe not an easier time overall. I would say yes because you don't have defenders with directly their eyes on you. But those situations, they just don't. They're like not happening as often. So how the Ravens are moving in zone coverage in terms of you have to deal with Josh Allen in the run game, you have to deal with those kind of deep throws. So I'm super excited to see like when Allen is extending the play and that ball is just launched into the air. Like what is Kyle Hamilton doing in terms of if he's just back at safety? I think we've seen a bunch of clips this year of him kind of on not necessarily the backside, but like the backside formationally, and he's able to kind of pick off a pass. Think of the one, at least one from Russell Wilson, and just the way that he is able to be pretty comfortable in that spot at the same time, the way that he robs to kind of the three receiver side at times, that can kind of undress that backside corner in that true isolation. So that is certainly one that I'm excited to see. And then, I mean, the Shakir versus Humphrey snaps in the slot, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Two players I think both of us like a lot. And maybe not that it decides the matchup, but if the Bills have a spot that they're comfortable consistently attacking, that might be a little bit of a tough one just because, Humphrey, I think, has played well this season. Tage, let's move on here to the Ravens offense against the Bills defense, where the Ravens offense in their first matchup was really able to beat them up on the ground. And we say styles make fights. Like we say that all the time. I think is it a little cliche? Is it like just truth? Yes, to both of those questions. But the Bills want to play light boxes, and the Ravens are more than happy to put 12 tight ends on the field, 2 running backs, and really run it straight at you. So that's just a kind of a tough matchup from a stylistic perspective for the Bills defense. At the same time, maybe you get a third linebacker thrown on the field there at times. The way the Bills, get upfield, the Ravens are going to run all of their different variations of trap schemes, trap, wham, crunch. We'll make up some new names for some other ones as well. I'm interested to see about Zay Flowers if he's able to play in this game. I think the projection is that he should be able to play in this game. I do think that the Ravens offensive line, which has certainly entered the season as a concern for both of us, I do think it's found its footing a little bit. I think that the Bills defensive line, a little bit up and down, I think, in terms of pressure this season. What do we got for the Ravens offense?
Yeah, so just was looking at the run concepts because you mentioned it, and the Ravens ran 2 plays of trap runs against the Bills in their first matchup and generated 7 total EPA off of those plays. So that was a very good type of run concept for them to use. They dominated using inside zone as well, ran 6 plays of it, got some explosives off of there also. And so would definitely look out for those types of run concepts in this game. But overall on the Ravens offense, like very high level offense, really, really good when both dropping back to pass and rushing. And the Lamar Derrick Henry run game has been super fun to watch this entire season. We really saw it at like an elevated level against the Steelers last week, where it's just so hard to defend both of these guys in the run game. Derrick Henry's average box defenders face has dropped by about 0.4 defenders in the box per rush this season. So that's the effect of the Ravens having a real passing game that you have to worry about. You have to have less defenders in the box. And then also Lamar Jackson just drawing players out of the box. Like that motion play that they used last week to create space for Derrick Henry was such a cool design. And then you also have Lamar, who, when he actually holds on to the ball himself in the run game, he has a 21.6% explosive rate, as you can see on consumersports.com, which is the highest rate among rushers with 100 design rushes this season. So he's someone who can just turn any rush into a 15 plus yard carry, which is so impressive. And the way that they get to all of these with what Todd Monken is doing with respect to their personnel diversity is they use the least amount of 11 personnel in the league, because they're putting out 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. Sometimes they're doing that at the same time. Like there's so many different personnels that they throw out there and that they make you prepare for. And if you're a lighter defense like the Bills defense is, and if you like to play with an extra defensive back on the field like the Bills usually like to do, it becomes a very tough matchup for you because of that.
I'm interested to see, what Todd Monken's plan is overall in this game. And I think we'll talk a little bit about where we're leaning. If they're able to win in this game, against the Chiefs, are assuming against the Chiefs, could certainly be against the Texans. Are you able to continue to just press the run the ball button? I think Monken this season has certainly been more comfortable doing that. We talked last year about how they spread it out and found ways to run the ball. I do think they have that in them in terms of using some 11 personnel or even getting to 12 and spreading it out from that look, but being comfortable, playing heavy, attacking people right at them. I think that's really paid off this season. Talking about the Bills defense here a little bit, we've talked about Christian Benford, Greg Rousseau a bunch this year. They certainly can be had, I think, as a defensive unit. So I think when you look at all 4 units in this game, this might be the weakest one. What do you have here for the Bills defense?
Yeah, Bills defense, they're going to play a lot of too high. They're going to play a lot of zone coverage. So definitely be on the lookout for that in this game. Since week 9, their defense has struggled a decent amount in terms of production allowed, especially just like down to down basis. They've really been allowing teams to sustain drives against them. Have had a little bit of a good performance in key situations in the red zone. So they hopefully need to continue that in this game. But like when you see their pass rush, you mentioned like Rousseau, like I think that their rush for pass rush is pretty pretty good. So they'll probably stick to that in this game. But you never know with what types of blitzes they'll use, even though they don't blitz that much. But maybe just something to switch up the looks in a big game like this one could be something to look out for as well.
Tays, let's start to think about just positive matchups for the Ravens offense overall. I had just the thought of, like running into light boxes. Obviously, it's a positive matchup. I think when you are a Ravens unit that's going to throw extra bodies at the problem, I mean, you can really put linebackers into the bind. You put some fancy notes in here. What is this? Talk to me.
Yeah, so looking at the Ravens offense, with what you mentioned on the running on light boxes, in their first matchup when they ran against 6 or 7 man boxes, they had so much success, especially when running against 7 man boxes. 2/3 of their rushes were successful rushes. They really were able to generate explosives against those. It wasn't until the Bills put an eighth person in the box that they were actually able to slow down the Ravens pass game. But if Lamar is going to see 8 defenders in the box, he's probably just going to pass on it. So if they put 8 defenders in the box in this game, I assume the Ravens will go away from the run and start to pass more. And if they keep 6 or 7 defenders in the box, it should be pretty easy for the Ravens to run on them like they did in the first game.
Okay, so you got this Bills defense. They're going to play 4-2. They're going to be a nickel all the time. They're a team that is going to, or at least they're hoping, right, consistently around that AFC Championship spot, obviously trying to break through to that Super Bowl. I don't necessarily think you can optimize your defense just for one playoff game. I do think, I mean, we've both talked to people who in draft rooms, they talk about, like you think about obviously the people in your division a little bit where you see teams drafting, I don't know, maybe an extra defensive tackle where another team has a really strong unit. I guess I'm not 100% sure about the approach in terms of, I wouldn't say, like, you need to build your defense just for one game that you may not play or based on all these other things. You obviously want to have a unit that is able to win consistently. I do think having some flexibility is a positive thing. I don't know if you have any thoughts on like, oh man, you need to have a defense that can play in the cold late in December and
Yeah, I
January.
mean,
I mean, we're now in
in,
January.
in yeah, January now, yeah. In terms of team building, like I pretty much agree with you there. Like I wouldn't optimize it for specific matchups you're going to see in the playoffs. Like I think the rare exception is if you are like a team that, or if you're in the same conference as like a dynasty, like a team that is consistently in the conference championship game. You can maybe point to a weakness that that team has as an overall philosophy that you can attack. But like even the team like the Chiefs or like the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady Patriots, like they change so much year in, year out. Like last year, the Chiefs run defense was really weak. Now it's a lot stronger. So if you spent the whole offseason trying to build up your run game to attack just the Chiefs in particular, and then the Chiefs run defense got good again, like you would kind of be stuck there. So it's definitely tough to do that from a team building standpoint. I do think from a game planning standpoint that there is something to be had there with like you can save plays or save personnel groupings, formation groupings that you can break out because you have a better feeling it'll work in a particular game.
Yeah, I think that makes a bunch of sense. What do you have here as a positive matchup for the Ravens offense against the Bills defense?
Yeah, so looking at Ravens offense here, I really think that they'll be able to have a lot of success in the intermediate passing game where the Ravens rank first at passing over the intermediate area of the field, so the 5 to 15 air yard mark. The Bills, that's been their main weakness on defense. They're pretty good at defending deep passes. They're pretty good at defending short passes, but they rank 31st at defending intermediate passes. So this is especially relevant to me if they're trying to sell out to stop the run. They're putting an extra guy in the box to help with that. Like I think that 10 to 15 air yard area will be pretty available to Lamar in this passing game because Bateman, Flowers, if he ends up playing, and Mark Andrews can all separate when they have those one-on-one matchups.
Anything you like for the Bills defense here?
Yes, the only thing I like for the Bills defense is if those three guys that I just mentioned, if Flowers plays in this game, if the pass is not going to them, I think that's where the Bills will have the advantage if it's getting thrown to Nelson Aguilar or players like that on the Ravens pass catching group, because when it does get thrown to the top three guys, it has been so lethal to defend for opposing defenses this year, and those guys all make up around like a 60% target share in total for the Ravens. And so, as long as it continues to get thrown to them, they'll have the advantage. But if not, you can really see the success rate and the production drop when it's not thrown to them.
Closing it up with some matchups that we're just excited about more from a fun base perspective. Like every time Derrick Henry touches the ball, I think is going to be a lot of fun. And then my other one is Rousseau versus Stanley over at that left side of the Ravens offensive line. I think going back to watch that film from that tight copy will be a lot of fun. Any other fun ones you want to mention?
Yeah, kind of with you there. Where like Rousseau and this Bills pass rush in general, that I thought had a really good game against the Broncos. Like when they do get in the backfield, I'm excited to see kind of how Lamar handles that, where his escape routes are in the offense. I think that'll be really fun to watch, and we really see these quarterbacks like turn up their scrambling, their rushing a bit in the playoffs because they got to leave everything out there. And so Lamar, Josh Allen, Mahomes, they all fall into that bucket.
Yeah, I mean Jones and I'm trying to think of other stuff just in the run game, like Jones and Oliver for the Bills at the D tackle spots like that. It's going to be a really big game for them. I think the way they're able to deal with double teams is going to be big. The way that they're able to just eat up space, if they are able to in this game, that will be an important one. I mean, I'm certainly leaning towards the Ravens. I think really thinking about the matchup, even though obviously you're going into Buffalo, you start to see all the tweets about the cold, and it's colder in Buffalo than it's ever been in Maryland, and how Lamar Jackson has played in the cold, and all these sorts of things. I think that's just going to be interesting to monitor. I don't know if you have any other like. We lean towards the Ravens. I'm guessing that you feel the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now. It's a slight lean towards the Ravens. Just I mean, it is in Buffalo, which I think will obviously help out the Bills. But I just think that the Ravens are the better team, and we've talked about this like basically the entire season since they matched up earlier. It's just like a tough matchup for this Bills defense to play against the Ravens offense.
Look, I mean, I've been on the Bills early on. I've done that. Wait, aren't the Bills the best team in the league? I've done that for so many weeks, so it's tough to come to this spot. I just really think when you look at all four units in terms of offense and defense, that Bills defense that does give me concerns. At the same time, it could definitely be a game where Josh Allen is just like, yeah, who cares about the defense? I'm just going to outscore these guys. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.